All right, everybody, welcome back. It's my famous whiteboard videos that nobody can read except for me. And if you don't know who I am, this is William Jones of Jewelry Sales Academy and founder of Jewelry Sales Academy and also founder of JewelLink Systems. And so today, what I want to go through is talk about something, it's the biggest topic and really the biggest definer in any jewelry store. And this really is the biggest definer, and not just in how successful you'll be, but what your potential is to grow. But then also, this is the number one question we always get all the time is closing. What is closing, and then how do we get our staff to do this? Because let's go over the certain reality, is that if we're in jewelry, whether you're in wholesale, you're in retail, you're in anything, or really almost any business, closing is what brings in the dollars, is that we're a sales organization, all right? So what we pay the light bills with, how we send our kids to school, how we buy more inventory, everything is by selling more. And so closing is a big aspect for us. And so one of the reasons that we've been slower to build content on this is because we just got done shooting our big course module that's going live on the Jewelry Sales Academy this week. But it's giving you, everything that we want to do is give you the logical perspective on closing, and then give you a framework of how to roll that out to your store. And so let's go through here, because why do we get so many questions with closing? Well, it's because a lot of people are uncomfortable in actually closing that sale. And so one of the things that we did the other day was that I had a whole group full of people in our morning meeting, and I said, okay, I want two of y'all to get together, and we're all going to sit around here. We're going to role play you closing this sale. Now, a cool thing that I like to do is anytime I'm going through and I'm role playing with newer associates is to go through there and take it outside of jewelry so we can really boil it down to what the skill is. And so I said, we're going to pick something. It can't be jewelry. What is it? And a newer associate and a more experienced associate start going through this. A newer associate's trying to close that older associate on something. And I've got another person there, and I said, keep track of a leaderboard of how often this person closes. And so what ended up happening was in about 3 or 4 minutes, this person towards the end, in a role-playing situation where we know we're trying to close as much as possible, ends up getting like 2 closes going through there. All right, so then immediately we go through there and we put an experienced person with that associate, and we rerun the situation, and I tell the same person, hey, go over there and count how many closes there were. Now, this person had like 8, and that was the biggest difference in between these two associates, is that one person is closing at 1 or 2 asking for the sale, or is asking for the sale once or twice during the sale, and another person's asking for it almost 8 times in just a few minute situation. So think about that, is that when we're really talking about closing, what are we really doing? We're talking about we want our associates to ask for the sale more. And so if we have just 2 associates, one person asked during a presentation twice, and one person asked 8 times, and we run this simulation 100 times over, how much more often do you think this person is going to close sales versus this person? I mean, at least 4 times more, and I would say that every time you ask for it compounds more than just once. And so as we're going through closing, this is probably one of the biggest differences here, is that this person only knew a couple closes. They really only knew like hardline closes, like, can I wrap this up for you? Or, you know, hey, I think you need to buy this one. This person started closing from the very beginning of the process. And that's what we see more often than not, that really bridges the gap between these two, or shows the gap between these two, is that this person in a sales presentation, let's go from right here. So this is the start. This is where we start really deciding on the piece, and this is the actual sale. So let's go through this. So this is where we actually try and find the piece. All right. This is where we welcome them into the front door. All right. And as we go through this, what we've seen more often than not with people who aren't really good at this is that they're really only closing in this gap right here, okay? So think about this. This person takes more of an educator role because they've been having to learn more, or it's their personality, et cetera, to where they're so worried about making the customer uncomfortable, or they're uncomfortable in closing, that the only time that they can really actually close is down here. And I kind of I should have drawn this actually right here, where it's really towards the end of the presentation. But what we've seen with the best people in the industry, and the people who are so good at this, they start closing right here at the front door. And then more often than not, if it's an experienced person and this person is coming in a referral, they actually start closing back here. And they close from the before we look at inventory, to while we're looking at inventory, to before the price, to at the price, and then they even close in the post-sale follow-up where they ask for referrals, they ask for, when's the next anniversary, et cetera, when they ask for this. And so this person closes 4 times as much, but more importantly, they're not doing it in this same area right here. They're actually doing it throughout the entire sales process. And this really depends on how they use language, how they use those closes, and then how they structure those closes to go back through there. So if you're in the academy, check us out. This was going to go through there and actually show you, and this is a framework for teaching people through here, but it goes through a few different things. It goes through the pre-close. And so a pre-close is setting expectations. This is at that front door where we go through and we tell somebody, hey, we're going to find your dream ring. We're going to find this. It's where we set the situation as it's going through here. The next are question closes, to where we're going through and we're actually looking through inventory. Hey, why don't you buy this? Why don't we do this? We're actually going through and throwing in closes to where we can actually figure out what this person's objections are. From that point, we're going to go through rarity and price closes. Rarity and price, then we're going into actual price closes, and then we're going into real hard closes from there too. And so this is the difference, is that this person's going to start with softer closes and then slowly bring into here. Whereas this person right here really only has a couple that go through here. So one really fun thing to do here is in a training is just to get your team together and go through there and set the situation up. Give them a piece of jewelry and give them 2 minutes on the clock and say, hey, I'd like to see you try and close this person. And then keep an actual leaderboard or a scoreboard of how many times they close in that situation. Then take another person over here. See how many times they can close in that situation. And then challenge your associates to go through and then try and imagine having a leaderboard or a scoreboard, imaginary scoreboard right there, that every single time they try and close something, they're giving themselves a tick. Because one of the principles that we talked about in the course is the best closers in the world are kids. And so I've got 2 young kids, and right now, what do they do when they want to go do something? They ask, they ask, they ask, they ask, they ask. And they start making it to where as long as they're persistent and they're asking them that, they end up getting their way more often than not because they're not afraid to ask. And so that's probably one of the biggest principles in closing, is that the people who are the best at closing aren't so much the best at just saying a close, but they're the best at the delivery. But what sets them up for the best delivery is asking the most. And the metaphor I always like to give for this is like hammering a nail into a piece of wood. If you just had the nail and you set it on the piece of wood and you're going to try and hit it with a hammer one time and drive this big nail into the piece of wood, very rarely will you ever do that. I mean, if you did that, it would be astronomical. What people typically do, and what we see with the best closers, is that they tap it to start it. They figure out how it's going to react, how that customer is going to react, and then they start driving it further and further. And once they really see that opportunity to go through there and close that sale, that's when those harder sales come out there, and that's when that nail goes completely through the board. So hope you enjoyed this video. Check us out at jewelrysalesacademy.com. We've got a lot of shows coming up and a lot of shows going through with RJO, IJO, CBG, and then Luxury JCK and JCK as well. So hope you get a chance to come and check us out.